Hello guys and welcome to my new video, and today we'll be talking about patch 8.1. I'll be talking about the things that I feel are really cool addition with the new patch. I'll be talking about things that, I don't know, could have been improved, maybe should have been added, maybe should have been more tuned. So overall this video is going to be looking at 8.1. One of the biggest questions that get asked on nearly everyday basis, basically, should I come back for 8.1 and things like that. If you've seen my previous video, you'll know that 8.1, in terms of the content they actually brings, there's not a lot of things to do. I would consider this patch as a great alt-friendly experience, basically, because it really provides a lot of quality of life improvements. But if you're really looking to get hyped up about a patch, definitely the new raid that's coming out on January 22nd, I feel is going to be good enough to bring people back into the game. But let's start with the positive note and look at things that have been really good with the patch. And by far, in my honest opinion, or at least in my experience, that one of the best additions that happened with 8.1 is the addition of the multi-threading improvement. So basically, most of the people who enabled, and I'll talk about how to actually enable this because it's not enabled by default. 8.1 brought a lot of improvements in terms of FPS, in terms of performance in raids and 5-man. So all of a sudden, especially for a person like me who does not own the most powerful PC out there, I had a lot of issues on bosses like Mythic, Gahoon. To a certain point, they were almost unplayable before 8.1, and when 8.1 came out, the difference was big. All of a sudden I was actually able to do some healing, or I was able to move on Mythic and Gahoon. It felt really great. And a lot of people don't actually know how to enable this, or how they thought that it's already enabled by default, but it's not. So if you own a Windows 10 PC, so this is going to work for Windows and Apple. But if you own a Windows 10 PC and if your CPU and graphic cards are compatible, you can go to Systems, Advanced, and go to the Graphics API and make sure that you enable DirectX 12. That's really important, basically, because all the improvements come from this. So if you have DirectX 12 enabled, you should be seeing improvements in your FPS. Now, if you use Apple PC, there should be a Metal option there. So that should be the right one. Now, this is not the only improvement that actually arrived with 8.1. There is another way to get those extra FPS, and that is if you own an NVIDIA graphic card. NVIDIA released very recently the latest update to their graphic cards, or to their drivers, and the latest update is specifically targeting BfA and patch 8.1 and things like that. So if you install the latest driver for NVIDIA and if you enable DirectX 12, you should get some insane performance gains. I think people were talking about 20%. Now, a big disclaimer is that with the latest NVIDIA driver update, graphic cards like GTX 1050 and 1060 have been experiencing a lot of issues. So there is a possibility, if you own those cards and if you update the drivers, you will have to roll back. Probably the best option for you, if you own those graphic cards, is to wait a little bit until actually upgrading to the latest NVIDIA drivers. So keep that in mind. So overall, the the FPS improvements, the multi-threading improvements have been insane. I wish this would have been added years ago. So another thing that is extremely well built into patch 8.1 is alt and leveling experience. All of a sudden, the XP required to level your alts is lowered. The experience, or at least how you can level alts from, let's say, 110 to 120 has been kind of revamped, because there is an addition of assaults. First of all, when I mention assaults, it's nothing new. In Legion, used to have invasions. It's the same kind of concept, but all of a sudden, you'll be able to do assaults. Let's say, in my case, I'm leveling a shaman. I want to level, this is the last healer that I'm going to be leveling in 8.1. And all of a sudden, assaults will appear. You'll have a certain number of quests. Those quests will give you a massive amount of experience. And after completing an assault on your alt or whatever leveling character, you will get a buff that's going to increase your experience gain by 10% for another hour. And then, coupled with the fact that there are service medals that you gain from Warfronts, Warfront vendor is going to be located in Alliance and the Horde side, and they will be selling an experience potion for 5 service medals. So all of a sudden, this experience potion is also going to give you 10% experience for 1 hour. That seems to be stacking with the assault buff. And then you look at things like the war mode increase for selected factions or unrepresented factions, and in majority of the cases that's going to be Alliance. If you enable war mode, you will be getting 30% increase boost in experience instead of 10%. So all of a sudden, 30% experience from war mode, 10% from the assault buff, 10% from the Warfront potions, on top of the fact that you might have some rested experience, equals some juicy experience. So all of a sudden, you can just log in once assaults are available, do them with all the buffs available, and you can really speed up the leveling experience that you're not forced into spending a lot of time doing that. So I feel that's really an amazing addition, especially if you have multiple outs. And then on top of that, once you level your alt, you might not have all the flight points, so they have included a scouting map. This scouting map is available from your 7th Legion or honor-bound vendor. I think it costs like 100 gold or 80 gold depending on your reputation with them, and you can send it to your alts, and it's going to learn, and they're going to learn flight points. So all of a sudden, depending on how you level, let's say you were spamming island expeditions and you might not have all the flight points unlocked, this is a really good change. Quality of life, and also the fact that Champion of Azeroth reputation is account wide. Make sure that with your alts you go to Magni and you get your max level neck. And again, these are really good quality of life improvements. So let's look at some of the not so good additions or features that could have been altered or maybe should be changed in order to make the whole experience of the patch a bit better. So I am mainly going to be talking about Warfronts, and the new Warfront for Darkshore is quite interesting. I was doing it. I was looking forward to see how challenging it's going to be. Maybe it's going to be new kind of additions. I know Blizzard has mentioned that in future patches they want to change Warfronts and maybe make them more challenging. But doing this new Warfront, which gives you 385 gear as a reward, so this is higher than your weekly chest. So this Warfront, the biggest source of your gear, of guaranteed gear, felt extremely lackluster in terms of the challenge that it provided. I was trying my best to actually stand in all of the bad stuff and see how hard for me it's going to be to die or actually fail this Warfront in order to kind of see how challenging it is. And I mean, you really have to fail in order not to complete the Warfront. So all of a sudden, because there is no challenge, there is no gameplay associated to it, if you really consider it, doing this on my 5 alts is gonna become a complete chore. And I can see why some guilds have been complaining about the push towards farming Warfronts or the push towards farming island expeditions for things like Azeroth or maybe Titan Residum. Sources kind of did a bit of a harsh tweet about how they might enjoy only Mythic Plus or raiding, but they're forced to do all these side experiences, and these side experiences might not be for them, but they're forced to do it in order to compete in raids. I mean, this is only going to affect a small portion of the population overall, but I do feel there is a strong push in island expeditions and Warfronts, and yet I feel to some extent they are quite lackluster. I feel that there is no harm in letting Mythic Plus drop, I don't know, Azeroth, or maybe dropping Titan Residum to some extent, maybe raids dropping Titan Residum as well, so you're not really have to choose between island expeditions and Warfronts in order to get AP or whatever. You can do Mythic Plus on raids and get AP and get all of the resources that you need, which I felt was the whole game design in Legion. And in BfA, you're kind of forced or split between the two. You have to do a bit of this and a bit of that in order to compete. So I do see where people are coming from, and I kind of wish if they are pushing towards Warfronts and islands, they should feel a bit better. That's my honest opinion, and I would love to hear your opinion towards island expeditions and Warfronts. Should they be more difficult maybe? Or should the rewards be a little bit different in terms of what Mythic Plus provides or what raids provide? I'd love to hear that. So besides the whole Warfront experience, I had to talk about some of the Mythic Plus changes and some of the Keystone deletion changes. So there has been a plethora of changes towards Mythic Plus. Basically, any skips or anything that was viewed as a clever use of mechanics has been removed. So a lot of the Rogue Shroud skips, a lot of the death runs and things like that are not really possible anymore, but at the same time I also see some positive changes, like in Temple Satralis, the last boss has been nerfed, the orbs or the movement, the speed of the orbs has been slowed down as well. So there has been some balancing, but I feel a lot of the changes to do with Mythic Plus, the removal of really cool and interesting skips, is not really warranted at the time, because I feel the overall Mythic Plus balance for a lot of dungeons is not there. Some Mythic Plus dungeons are just extremely annoying and some of them are a lot easier. So removing these skips is going to make these dungeons a lot harder, and people won't want to do King's Rest anymore. King's Rest was always kind of really annoying, and now they're not allowing certain mobs to be CC'd and things like that. So all of a sudden, some of the dungeons are going to be really annoying to do, and on top of the fact that you can't delete your Mythic Plus Keystones anymore. So if you're not aware, you were able to delete Mythic Plus Keystones and get a new random key depending on the current key that you're doing or your weekly top best dungeon, and you can't do that anymore. You have to do the key that you have and hope you're gonna get something better. And this, in my opinion, is really annoying. I am quite certain that the deletion of keys that was available in BfA was not intended by Blizzard, but it ended up being a really cool feature that people really enjoyed, and Blizzard removed that. So basically anything that's fun has to go. That's my honest opinion about keystone deletion. There should be a new way of getting new keys. It should not feel completely overpowered. You should not have a complete choice in what key you get. And I feel the BfA version did that, and 8.1 got rid of it. I would love to hear your opinions about the positive and negative changes in 8.1. Overall, I feel the patch is quite good in terms of what it provided. In terms of the content, like I mentioned at the start of the video, there is not a lot of stuff to do. If you want real content, wait until January 22nd when the new raid is released and it looks epic. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next guide.